Today we're inside the 2025 Ford Explorer taking a look at the new Ford digital experience. This is replacing Sync in the Explorer and soon other Ford vehicles. You'll notice that even though this is not the smoothest gameplay I have ever seen, this is significantly smoother than the average infotainment system because this is one of the more powerful infotainment systems available in any vehicle in North America right now. And in addition to playing games like this, of course, it's going to act as your infotainment and navigation system. So let's just dive into the system itself. Today I'm inside the 2025 Ford Explorer and we're taking a look at the Ford digital experience. That's what they're calling their replacement for Sync. Even though we're taking a look at it today in a Ford Explorer, you should be seeing this in other Ford and Lincoln models coming up pretty soon. Now, the big thing to know is that this has one of the fastest graphics and CPU processors available in an infotainment system currently for 2025. You can see that occasionally the video in this game is a tiny bit glitchy, but this is significantly faster than the average infotainment and navigation system out there. Let's just dive into the rest of the system so we can see how this system works and what you might like to know about it. First one, obviously, is we have smartphone projection. So even though this is based on Google Automotive, you can Android Auto and you can Apple CarPlay. We're going to take a look at Android Auto in just a moment. So you have that choice. This is not like we're seeing in the General Motors lineup where EV versions of their Google Automotive interface won't have CarPlay or Android Auto integration. This is actually seemingly built on a slightly more modern stack of Android. We can see that you can do your over-the-air software updates there. We also have access to the Google Play Store. That's how you'd install games. And now that we're logged in via our Google ID, I can just go ahead and install things like Amazon Prime Video. Because this has such a fast processor, you can do video streaming through this system. That's one big improvement that we noticed versus the Blazer EV that we just got on the channel. You can also do things like Waze, ChargePoint, PlugShare, etc. there. Let's go ahead and install the Waze navigation software so we can see if this works any better than GM's implementation of Waze. In addition to downloadable apps, we of course have the built-in Google apps like Google Mapping with full voice command ability. Hey Google, take me to Los Angeles. And it supports natural voice recognition.
Let's go.
You can also do things like, hey Google, set my temperature to 69 degrees.
All right, changing the temperature for the driver to 69 degrees.
Let's try something else. Hey Google, turn on my seat massage.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Aww, oh well. Hey Google, turn on my seat ventilation.
Sorry, I can't control that in this car.
As you can see, not all of the available functions are Hey Google enabled, but a decent number of features are. Of course, now I'm kind of confusing her there. On this side, we have some direct access buttons to system notifications, the voice command button right over there if you want to use that, and turn on and off the microphone for apps that have permission to do that. Because this is basically functioning like a big Android tablet, some applications are going to be ported in a more tablet-style function than a cell phone-style behavior. And that's something that I've definitely noticed, for instance, in the ways that Waze functions. You have to allow permissions just like you would on an Android device. And then once you're in Waze, you'd have to scan the QR code to get started. We're just going to go ahead and skip that. And the reason I'm going to skip that is because if you're using Waze in the Google Automotive system, you cannot also have Waze open on your smartphone. You can only operate one at a time. So for some folks out there, you might actually want to create a separate Waze login just for your car to use. One interesting flaw with the Waze integration that we see here and in other vehicles with Google Automotive is that there are no voice commands. So you do have to type in the destination with Waze, whereas if you had Waze on your smartphone, we'll just go ahead and go to Waze here. You can click the voice button, Detroit, Michigan. And even though the voice recognition is not as good in Waze as it is in the Google Mapping interface, at least you can do that through your smartphone interface, but you can't directly through the Google Automotive system. But we do see a lot of flexibility just in the kind of applications that you can download, and of course you have access to your Alexa devices here as well. Ford has also ported some of their native apps from Sync, like their trailers application and the trailer aids right here into the system. That's a nice touch. So as they move along, more and more of those native Ford apps that we saw in Sync will be ported right here into the system. They were also really proud of the fact that you can now WebEx with the system. Again, that's thanks to the faster GPU in the system, so it can do streaming audio and streaming video there as well. With the WebEx application, obviously there's no camera here in this display, but you can see other people's camera feeds if you're in a WebEx meeting. If you're driving, it's going to disable the camera feeds, but you can still do the audio. Moving over here to the home screen, you can see that we have a moving map interface right there. We also have some shortcuts over here for things like the audio app. Since I have a smartphone connected, it's going to default over to there. Over here on P1, we would set up profiles, so you can switch profiles for different drivers, P1, P2, you can name them whatever you want, obviously. We'll just go ahead and move over to the guest profile. Once I move over to a different profile, you notice that it will unpair my smartphone, so now we don't have that smartphone integration anymore because we're in this different person's profile. In addition to the different colors that you can choose, you can also have it linked to things like your seat memory, etc. And of course, these pop-ups for accepting all of the various terms and conditions are based on the profile as well. Because again, this is very much like having an Android tablet. Although I would say that unlike the GM implementation of this system where it has a slower processor, more like having a cheap tablet, this is more like owning a more expensive tablet, as you'd assume. Over here on the car option, we find some of the specific vehicle settings. So for instance, 30-minute max idle, the lighting systems, this is where we would adjust the theme on this display. For instance, if we wanted to go down here to display, you want touchscreen beeps, you want your mode to be auto, light, or dark. It'll take a while, but it will actually change that. You can get your network and internet details for internet connectivity, adjust your location services, all of that sort of thing. And if we go down here, let's see if we can find out exactly what version of software this is. This is currently running Android 12, and you can see the build number, kernel version there, etc., just in case you're wondering what version we are on right now. This is obviously where you would also adjust things like the driver assistance systems, the pre-collision warning, blue cruise, things like that. All of that is found in there. You also adjust things like the ambient lighting right here in this display, and the changes are definitely swifter than in the previous sync system. You'll also notice that the animations are really well done here in this, whether we're talking about the seat massage that's available or just the random seat controls that you can also adjust in this area here, definitely much snappier than the previous sync system. On the climate control functions, we hit this button down here and we have the climate control pop-up. In this vehicle, the air vents are manual, so this is just showing you where the air is coming out. So for instance, if I put it in the defogger mode, you can see the air is just coming out there, etc. So it's not an on-screen air vent motion thing like you'd find in some EVs. Now let's go ahead and check out Android Auto. Again, Android running on the system, Android Auto running inside that black border right there. Now, unlike CarPlay, it can't occupy the entire screen, so this side is going to be left reserved for certain system functions. There's no expand and contract button there. But unlike Apple's CarPlay implementation, there are a few more apps available, as you can see in Android Auto. And if you go deeper down the rabbit hole, it is easier to hack into Android Auto and add additional apps that may not normally be available within Android Auto. The interface is likely pretty familiar because here we see Google Maps on the Android Auto device, and if we go back to the car system, we see basically the exact same map and same design for the map in Android Automotive. One of the main differences here, though, is that you can see satellite imagery in Android Auto, and you'll notice that in most of the implementations for Android Automotive, there is no option for the satellite imagery, and that's mainly because the companies want to keep the data services, data traffic low. It's not a functional difference in the system. This software could definitely give you the satellite overlay if Ford wanted it to. One big difference between the new Ford digital experience and the previous Sync instrument cluster is that it now supports two-screen smartphone projection. So this map is being delivered by Android Auto right over there. It will also, of course, work the same way with Apple CarPlay. So you can use this native mapping interface with the onboard nav system. So for instance, if I were to map with this Google Maps built into the system, it would show the map over there as well. Or I can map with the built-in Google mapping system, although you can see that it's not going to give you that satellite overview in the instrument cluster that Android Auto is capable of delivering right here in the central screen. Let me know what you guys think about all that, and what do you think of the new 4 Digital experience? Also, what do you think of the fact that in the US, the Explorer gets this much smaller screen, and in China, they get an Explorer with a truly gigantic screen across the dashboard? Be sure and sound off down there in the comment section below, and stay tuned because hopefully there will be a full drive review of this Explorer coming up soon. See all of you later.